Interesting, you're looking forward to the election then, so you're going to be voting for it tomorrow?
I shall be.
And why are you looking forward to an election so much?
I think the House of Commons is dominated by people who wish to remain, despite them, most of them being in the Parliament when we voted for a referendum, when we changed our position from being representatives, thinking about owing people our best judgment, to on this issue saying we're going to be, you tell us, and we're delegates and we will carry it through.
You're not worried you might lose your seat in the election, though?
But I'm going in to win. And we'll see. It's difficult. It's not a marginal seat, so I haven't got lots of Liberals and Tory votes to scoop up behind me. But I am confident that I will win that seat.
Labour, of course, have been resisting backing an early election so far.
Well, wouldn't you?
Why do you think that is?
Given what the polls show?
Do you think that's what it is?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, Jonathan Ashworth said it's nothing to do with the polls, it's nothing about whether or not they can win, it's all about trying to make sure that no deal is off the table.
The MPs that I know are pretty sick the thought of having an election, so people will vote against it. I mean, it's an old hackneyed phrase, isn't it? But turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Unless you're old-fashioned Liberals, and you did, and Michael Foot, and you saw what the consequences were. So I think we should have one. We do obviously need to get the bill through, but we don't need that amount of time. I hope the European Union gives us a 2-week extension. And there's much there to discuss of importance, but other people are going to use this time that we have in the committee stage to say we must have another referendum. These are people who agreed the referendum, haven't accepted the result of the referendum, and now say we ought to have another referendum. It's absolutely farcical. There are big issues to decide, but they won't take more than 2 weeks in committee. We should get the bill through and then we should have an election.
Now, you, of course, voted to leave the EU. You also voted for Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. Did you just vote for the deal because you want Brexit to be done, or because you actually think it's a good deal that has been negotiated?
No, I mean, it's not the most brilliant deal. I think it's worse than the May deal. But all the people who voted against the May deal are now complaining against this deal. So, I mean, it's just, that's what goes on in Parliament. But it's not Boris Johnson's deal. We had a referendum, the people spoke, both parties committed themselves to accept that referendum result, both parties put in their election manifestos that they would actually carry that result through. So I voted for the referendum bill, though on one occasion when I was voting for for the deal that Mrs May put forward to fulfil the referendum decision, she came up and said, "Thank you for being in my lobby tonight, Frank." I said, "Oh, no, Prime Minister, you're in my lobby." I've always been on balance in favour of leaving, where she'd been somebody who had actually been against leaving.
So she switched to your corner.
She had indeed.
I can see that, definitely. If the bill's going to have any chance of getting through, it's going to need a lot of your former colleagues in Labour to support it. Do you think that there are the numbers there, or do you worry that some of those who back the second reading may actually fall away as it continues its passage?
Yes. When Sir Oliver Letwin put forward his amendment to extend the time, the analysis that's been done on the people who voted for that, 3/4 of those who voted for yet another extension were people who are committed to Remain. So we've got Remain supporters appearing in Brexit clothing, but their aim is to wreck the decision of that referendum. And my worry is about having another long delay when we really need a couple of weeks, is all these delays come out of what's called the transition period, the period in which we want to negotiate that free trade agreement with the European Union. We've already had 2 extensions. That time has come off. The really important period that once we've passed the legislation, we then get on to the detailed negotiations as to what our relationship with Europe will be. And for that, I've always been in favour of a free trade agreement.
Now, you have spent many years campaigning about modern-day slavery. 39 people were this week found in the back of a refrigerated trailer. I mean, we don't know the circumstances of these individuals, of course.
We
but what's your
know
reaction?
them pretty well. I mean, people now are so desperate, wanting to come here because it's a great country to be in, despite politicians crapping away all the time about implementing the referendum decision.
What happens when they get to the UK? Where do they go?
Well, I mean, the reports show that there would have been, if this had been a successful cargo, if those poor wretches had actually been alive, there would have been minibuses to actually meet that van and take them off into this twilight zone of really modern slavery in Britain. And when three of us, Elizabeth Butler-Sloss from the Lords, Maria Miller, colleague in the Commons, and myself, we reviewed for the government how we should strengthen the Modern Slavery Act. And we've kept going because we're looking at the issue of whether our laws on prostitution make it more favourable to bring people here and then traffic them further onto the continent or not.
So you think that's one thing that could happen?
No, we had officers from Border Control from our ports as part of our inquiry. And the horrendous thing that they said was, unlike an airport, where the border staff get lists of who the people are in advance, the wave of lorries and cars and what have you coming over, they have no idea whatever at all about anybody coming in through the ports. So the three of us have asked for an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary, if she's listening. Might she actually now grant that request? Because clearly it's very, very, very easy to bring people into this country through the ports. It's much more difficult to do so through the airports. And therefore, one of the things we need to do is to look at what do the border staff need in ports. And then secondly, the government's and this government, previous government's campaign against drugs has been coordinated nationally, bringing in our secret services, the Foreign Office, the police, the border control staff, to try and make a job of preventing drugs getting into this country. Okay. Now, that group does not exist to counter modern slavery. And one thing the government could do on Monday would be to announce to the House of Commons, you're not only going to have a vote on the election, but we've actually now going to treat this as seriously as we do drugs, because they don't at the present time.